Today, what I want to do is share with you how to sew a kangaroo pocket onto your favorite top. I am sewing it onto my raglan sleeve top, and actually, I'll stand up so you can see. I have on the top that I did already, and I love it. The sad thing about this top is that it's very warm, and um, I'm warm right now, and I think there'll be very few days where I'll get to wear it now that it's starting to become springtime because I'm a hot person. So, good news, I created a short sleeve version, and that's what I'm going to add a kangaroo pocket onto today. What I want to do first, though, is talk about the actual pattern piece for the kangaroo pocket. I put this pattern in the J Stern Designs Fitting and Pattern Perfection Facebook group. So if you'd like to join me there, you can download it. It's free. And I just want to show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just show you quickly how to put it together. It's this the same format as the raglan sleeve top or any of my other PDF patterns, but the cool thing is it's only 2 pages. So you can see here I've got 2 pages. I didn't number them because they just go together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut off the allowance on one of the pieces, and I'm just going to cut right along the guidelines, the dashed lines on that mark the margin. I'm going to cut that off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to match those up with the other, the second page like this. And you can see it goes together really quickly and easily. So let me just tape that together. Okay. All right, so now I've got that taped together. And now you can see all of the sizes. I'm working with the size 14. If you're working with the raglan sleeve top and you have a version that you've owned for a while, my previous sizing was extra small to 5 extra large, and I switched to a number system or a number sizing system. So it goes, the 5 extra large is a 20, and it goes down to a extra small is a size 4. But I put that chart on here so you can easily find your size. And of course, after you find your size, you can cut it out and maybe trace it onto some tracing paper and make a double-sided, like a full version of it. And then you can put it on the front of your shirt and see if you'd like to maybe make it a little bit, wider, taller. You can play with it on your actual garment after you've cut it out um, and traced it and cut it out. So this is the pattern, and again, you can get this at J Stern Designs Fitting and Pattern Perfection group. There's a link in the description to get that. Now let me show you the second top that I started for this. Whoops. This is kind of a cool fabric. I had purchased it actually for something else. I was going to use it for its double-faced kind of properties, but I decided I would use it to make my top because it has a lot of interest. It's sort of an ombre, blue to red and some mixed blue and red black over here. So I thought it made an interesting top. So I cut that out and I already sewed it together. And you can see here I made a short sleeve version. And the pattern, the raglan sleeve top pattern, has a cutting line to create this. This is really kind of a cap sleeve. It's really comfortable. When I put it on, the one thing I noticed was I had to take it in just a little bit along that short underarm seam because it flared, it was a little bit too wide on my bicep. So I just took it in a little bit after I sewed it to get a nice you know, a nice snug fit on the short sleeve. And I finished the neckline already. So let's look down here at the hem. The hem has a slight curve to it, which I left alone. Let me just see something here. Okay, so I left the shape of that, and I've already started my kangaroo pocket. I cut it out so I wouldn't be, you know, sort of taking up your time watching me cut out the shape. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to, again, trace your, either cut out the size you want to work on and cut it on the fold, or, you know, trace it onto a piece of paper that you can make a, you know, a full version and then cut it out of your fabric. I was sort of playing with this. I wasn't sure if I wanted to create a kangaroo pocket that sort of matched the color from behind, and I decided to sort of balance this for my shape. This light blue color tends to be a little bit of a bigger color, and you can see I've got a very generous bust. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to have this lighter blue up at the top, if I put the lighter blue at the bottom too, then it will, I think, balance the front of me instead of having it be a lighter color here and a darker color here. So that's why I chose to put the light blue in the kangaroo pocket. And you can see here I've already finished one side of the kangaroo pocket. So that's the first thing I'm going to show you how to do. Okay, so basically this is, I just used a strip to wrap around and create sort of a binding. That's what it looks like on the wrong side. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to finish this side, or this side of the kangaroo pocket. I cut a 2-inch wide strip, and I cut it on the bias. One of the things I love about striped fabric is it really gives you a lot of different design options. So instead of going with the grain on this, I cut it on the 45-degree angle. So now you can see it creates diagonal stripes along the along the binding there. So let me pull in my sewing machine, and I'm going to set my camera up a little bit better so you can see what I'm doing. Let me just fix the, let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Oops. All right, that'll give you a little bit of a better view. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my, I'm going to start at the bottom. This is the waist, or the little side seam. I'm going to start there, and I'm just going to put this right sides together with the edge of the pocket. And I just want to make sure this, you know, there's enough, I'm far enough away from this 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to put these together like this. And I'm going to use, I'm about almost 3/4 of an inch from the edge. The cool thing is, with binding the edge of the kangaroo pocket, you can make it as wide or as narrow as you like, to make it a little bit of a bolder statement, and to, you know, really showcase the contrasting color. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. So this is about 3/4 of an inch. So now basically I'm just going to sew that. And as I sew, I'm going to gently stretch the strip of fabric just a little bit so it pulls the openings of the pocket in. I don't want them to flare out, you know, on my, because it's going across my tummy. So I'm just going to gently pull this. Just a little bit. And I'm just matching my edges up. Okay. All right. let's take a look at that. Okay, so here's what it looks like now. Okay, and what I want to do is I'm going to take my pins and I'm going to take this binding and I'm going to fold it over the edge like this, and then fold it down. And then after it's folded down, I'm going to roll it a little bit. And what I'm doing here as I roll it is I'm kind of rolling the raw edges of the pocket opening under just a tad, just because I want to make sure that this strip is really firmly wrapped around my seam allowances. So I am going to just put some pins in, and I'm pinning at the base of the binding. Oh, hi Connie. Hi Brenda. Thanks for joining me. I think this is, I don't know if this is a popular time to watch a video on the middle of a Saturday, and it's gorgeous outside. Yesterday it had rained really bad all day, so I don't blame people if they're outside watching. I mean, I'm outside enjoying the weather. Oops. All right, so I'm just going to quickly pin this. And as I pin, the other thing I can check is I can make sure my pins are an equal distance away from the raw edge. And that's how I know I'm pinning it evenly, you know, wrapping it evenly around my seam allowances of the front pocket opening. You can have a lot of fun with this because there's lots of different, you know, things that you can do. You can use contrasting color. You could use, you know, solid colors and do a different solid color for your binding, different prints. All right, so there it is pinned. I'm going to go back to the sewing machine now. And just to help me stay honest, I'm going to use my Stitch in the Ditch foot. The reason why I like using this is because it has a guide in the center of the foot, and then I can put that guide right at the base of my binding, and it'll help me sew evenly underneath my binding. Now, the one thing is you want to make sure that you can see that the folded under part, or the part on the inside, is laying flat, because we want to catch that. So I'm going to put my guide right where the binding is sewn on, and basically I'm just going to sew this. And I'm going to take my pins out as I get to them. If anybody has any questions, you know, feel free. I can see your questions, I believe. Actually, I don't know if I can see if you've posted a question or not. I don't go live on YouTube as much as Facebook, so it's a little bit new to me. But in any case, I'm going to just finish this right here. I feel like something's going wrong. Let me just look. See, I felt that it fell off. See that? So let me just fix that. Of course, it didn't do that when I was working by myself for the first side. I'm just going to take it out just a little bit so I can get back in there and get it back on. If you're paying attention to how your sewing machine feels, you can feel if you stop catching it. So I'm just going to fold that back down. And then I'm going to catch where I missed. But stuff happens. All right. Okay. All right, so Let me just start that about here where it was on and then fell off. Okay, I just want to make sure I finish that nicely. Just going to back tack quickly. All right. All right. See, now I can feel it, that it's smooth and it's underneath there. Plus, when you get to the end, so you can see that it's right there. All right, excellent. Let's take a look at that. All right, so now it's caught nicely. So now here's what we're gonna do. Let's lay it flat. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to just trim this even. So I'm gonna trim off my tails like that. Oops, I didn't. Okay, so let me just change my camera view. Hold on. All right, I'm going to get my handy dandy pressing surface here. Let me just cover it with a nice white. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give this some nice steam. The first thing I'm going to do with my iron. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to stabilize this top edge, because this is the top of the pocket, and I want to make sure it stays nice and straight when I sew it on. So I'm going to use a little bit of this. This is a knit stay tape. It's got a little bit of stretch to it. It's from Sokeezy. And I'm just going to press a little piece of it. One second. Right along the top here like this. And that's going to give the the top of our kangaroo pocket just a little bit of stability. Okay. I'm just going to tap it on with my iron. All right, and then I'm going to fold this top edge down. And to give it a nice crisp crease, I'm going to use my Point Perfect as a mini clapper. So I'm going to steam this. First I'm going to give it some steam. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trap the heat with this wood, and that will help get a nice crisp crease to the fabric. Let's put a little bit more steam over here. Okay. All right. All right. All right, so that is the top edge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the side edges under the same way. And I'm not going to stabilize those though. So I'm going to steam and trap the heat with my little mini clapper. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm doing about a ½ inch seam allowance, ½ inch allowances here. When you make your pocket and you try it on the front of your top, you can allow for, make sure you allow for allowances. So if you like the way the pattern piece looks on your top and you don't want it to be smaller, then add seam allowances when you cut it out of fabric. All right. All right, perfect. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to get my top back over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center front of my top. And the easy way to do that is I'm just going to fold my front together, match up the side seams like this. So I know that this is my center front right here. So I'm going to put a pin there to mark it. Okay, so that's my front, center front. And then I'm going to fold my pocket in half and get the same thing. So if I fold this in half, I know that my pins. Okay, this is my center. All right, and then I'm just going to match those up. So the cool thing is the pattern is designed to match the curve of the raglan sleeve top. Certainly if you're using this for a different top, you can, you can definitely, straighten out the edge or make the edge match the top you're putting it on. But if you're working with the raglan sleeve top, then they match. So I'm just going to put some pins along the bottom, to hold it in place. Like this. Now the hem is still raw, and so is the bottom edge of my pocket. I didn't turn that under. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the pocket opening. I want to make sure that stays nice. We're not sewing the pocket opening, but I want to make sure everything stays nice when I sew and doesn't shift. So I'm actually going to pin the front pocket openings closed just to hold the position of them. Like this. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to do this other side over here. Make sure you don't pin it to the back. So that's why I'm putting my hand in there. I think ideally, if you're making this from scratch, you can put the kangaroo pocket on before you sew the whole top together. But I wanted to show you how it looked sewn together. So realistically, if you're doing this on something you're sewing, do this step before you actually sew the front to the back or put the sleeves on, because then you won't have to worry about catching it in the back. Okay. All right, so I've got that pinned, and then I also want to make sure, I'm going to put a pin in the top edge, just a couple. And because this has got stitched stripes in it, I can see that I'm straight at the top edge. All right, so see, now that's all nice and pinned. Okay, so we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this pocket on. And because I'm working with, I'm kind of like in the round, I'm going to turn it inside out so I can sew inside. So I'm going to take off I'm going to leave my foot on actually. And I'm going to start at this top edge. So see how I've got it inside out, so I can definitely see where the back is. Okay, I don't want to catch anything. And I'm going to put my guide that I used to put the binding on. I'm going to put that right on the edge or the top edge of my pocket. I have to move my needle over though, so I'm going to move my needle to the right so it stitches on the actual pocket. And let's see, I'm going to start stitching. take the pins out as I come to them. Now you could do this with a cover hem on your serger if you wanted to. Now see, as I'm sewing, the guide is pushing my knit, so I'm going to pick it up and let it relax every inch or so it doesn't push it out of whack. I don't like how it's doing that. You know what? I don't like how it's doing that. I'm going to take this off. On this knit, this is not... I'm going to take this off and put the standard foot on. My standard. Oh, here it is. I'm just going to use my standard foot because I didn't like how it was pushing. I'll have to be honest or straight with my own eyeball without a guide. I can do it. Oh, can you guys see what I'm doing? All right, let me just... Sometimes when you're working with knit and a guide like that, that happens. So I want to make sure I kind of catch it where I was. Okay. All right, so when I come to the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch all the way to the edge, and I'm hand walking it the last couple of stitches. Then I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to stitch down about, I don't know, maybe, 4 or 5 stitches. And then I'm going to turn around and go the other way, just to really make sure that I'm reinforcing that. All right, so now we're going to go back. See, now I can use the side of my presser foot as a guide right here. All right, so I'm going to go all the way to the end. And again, I'm going to hand walk it when I get really close. And then I'm going to turn and stitch up those, few stitches to the top. And then I'm going to stitch back about a 1/4 inch away from the edge just to secure that. All right, good. Oops. All right, so now the top is sewed on. I have this little blip right here where I had to stop and start, but it worked out fine. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew my little shorty ends over here, so we'll do this one first. And I think it's going to be easier to sew from the bottom and then go up onto the heavier bound edge. So I'm going to start at the bottom. And I'm going to take my pin out before I get to it. Okay. And again, when I get to the top of that bound edge, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stitch across, just a few stitches, and then I'm going to stitch back down. Okay. So see, it's almost like a double row of top stitching. All right, so I can take all the pins out on this side so I don't stab myself. And I just need to do this one last side over here. I'm going to take this pin out. Let me take this out. let's just stitch across a few stitches. And then let's pivot it back down. All right, let's take a look at that and see how we did. All right. I cannot see if anybody is commenting. Let me see. I'm just going to look in. I shared this with the J Stern Design group. I want to see if anyone is commenting, or if you can even see it for that matter. Let me see. Okay. Well, I can't see actually. Well, I can't tell. If you guys are asking questions, I'm so sorry I can't see them for some reason. So I will definitely check after I'm done, and I will answer your questions if you're asking questions. All right, so let's just take a look at this. All right, so this is how it looks now. And I'm going to just trim all of my threads. Just have a few. Okay, so now, in this case, what I'm going to do, I feel a pin. All right, in this case, I'm going to finish the edge with a binding or a band like I did over here. Like, see how this is finished with a band? If you don't want to do that, you could actually turn the bottom edge of this pocket up and finish it like we sewed the top on, and then you could just do a regular hem. You could do that as well, but I'm liking this little binding. It makes it quick and easy. So I have a binding ready to go here, and of course, because I'm playing with this different, you know, this ombre kind of fabric, what I'm going to do, I cut it so it's half red and half blue. Okay, so there it is. So what I can do is I can try it. So I'll fold it in half and I'll lay it here. Do I like the red? Like that to finish it? Or, you know, do I like the blue? And honestly, I think because the pocket is blue, I'm going to go with the red side showing. Okay, so that's how I'm going to finish it. So to figure out what the length is going to be, this is what you want to think about. If you want your band to just be an extension of the top and not draw it in, then you want to make your band basically the same length as your hem. If you want it to pull it in a little bit like a sweatshirt, you're going to want to make it a little bit shorter. So for this one, I think I'm going to make it pretty close. I don't think I really want it to pull in. So I'm literally going to use the existing hem to measure. So I folded it in half. Folding it in half, and then I'm folding it in half. So essentially, see, it's in half, right? And so I'm going to put the fold over here. Okay, so this is the fold. I'm going to match that up with one side edge, and then I'm going to stretch it across, okay, to here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it maybe a ½ inch shorter. I don't want it to be bigger than the hem, you know, so I'm going to just cut it just a little bit, so it's about ½ inch shorter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unfold it, make sure it's not twisted, and I'm going to sew the short ends together. So let's just do that first. I'm going to sew this. So then my next step is, let me just make my view a little bit wider so you can see. All right, so I'm going to fold this in half. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a minute and I'm going to press my seam allowance open on my seam, because that'll reduce bulk. So let me just steam that. And then the other thing that will make it easier to work with is if I fold it in half and create a crease at the bottom. So I'm just going to fold it in half like this, basically putting raw edges together, and I'm just going to create that crease at the bottom. This will make it behave better when we go to sew it on. All right. I'm not rubbing, I'm just sort of hovering and pressing. So now I have this nice band. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. And then I'm also going to switch to my serger because it's going to be easier to sew this band on with the serger. Just move all this stuff out of the way. Okay, so here's my serger. All right, let me just plug this in. Okay. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do, now that I have my serger all set, is I'm going to find the halfway from the seam. So here's my seam right here, and the other half, or the halfway point, is going to be where my other side seam is. I'm going to line these up with the side seams. So what do I do with my pins? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this right sides together with my top. Okay, so one side seam will go here, and I'm putting the red side face down because that's what I want to show. So this pin right here, I'm going to line that up with one of my side seams. And then I'm going to match the actual seam in the band with this opposite side seam over here. And again, I made this so it's virtually the same length, so really it'll be very easy to sew together. You'll see if I lay it flat. See, it's going to just match up almost perfectly. So I'm just going to throw a few more pins in here just to hold it. I'm not going to go pin crazy. Whenever I use the serger, I really try to use a minimal amount of pins so I don't have to worry about sewing over them and nicking my blade. But I'm just going to put a couple pins. Now in the front, I'm going through 3 layers. I'm going through the front, 4 layers. The front, the pocket, and then the 2 raw edges of the band. And in the back, I'll just have 3 edges to worry about. The 2 on the band and the 1 on the back. So I want to make sure I pin everything. Like over here, see, I missed one of the layers. See? So I'm going to take this pin out and repin. So just make sure you're catching all your layers and they're all even. All right, so I think I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to go to the serger, and I'm just using a 4-thread overlock stitch to sew this band onto the bottom of this top. Okay. All right, so let's get the serger queued up here. Let me just change my focus to make sure you can see. Okay. All right, so this is the last step. And again, I'm going to sew inside the circle. Okay, so I'm putting it on this way, and I'm going to put it in there so all the raw edges are parallel with the presser foot. I'm going to put my needles down. I'm going to get rid of this pin right here. And I'm just going to start serging. And again, as I go, I'm going to make sure I'm catching all the layers. Just trimming a little bit off there. Okay. Okay, can you see what I'm doing? Okay. All right, I went across the front. I can see that I just went across the kangaroo pocket. All right, now I'm going across the back. This is really an instant gratification hem. It goes on so fast and it looks so nice. Okay, so I've cut my tail off. I'm not just going to veer off the edge of my hem because that looks yucky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my knife down, and then I'm going to continue to serge until I overlap my start point. And when I've overlapped my start point about 1/4 inch, I'm going to make sure my needles are up. I'm going to pick up my presser foot. I'm going to push the fabric and the threads off the stitch fingers so there's nothing under the needles, and then I'm going to chain off. All right, and what that does for us is it gives us almost an invisible start-stop point instead of just veering off the edge of the fabric. So that was my little serger tip. All right, let's take a look at this now. I'm just going to put this away. Okay, let's take a look and see how our band looks. We might have to give it a little press job. I think we're going to have to. So let me get my little pressing surface here. Okay, hold on. All right. I am really excited about this top. I think it looks really, really nice. So look how cute that is. So I'm just going to give it a little steam. And actually, I think what I want to do is press my seam allowances up. So let's do it from the wrong side so you can see. You know, and of course, if you want to go in and top stitch along the band, you can do that. But this is going to look really nice. I'm excited. Now I have a top I can actually wear when it gets warmer because it's got short sleeves. I'm gonna try also to make a almost like a tank top. So the sleeve won't go into the bottom of the armhole. I'm gonna play with that style too because I'm pretty sleeveless in the summer. I'm really not a sleeve girl. All right, so let's take a look at this now that it's pressed. Look how cute that is. Yep, I'm pretty happy with that. So there would be the kangaroo pocket. Now remember, if you want to not have a band, all you're going to do is finish the bottom edge like you finished the top edge. Fold it up, top stitch it, but leave room for your hem underneath it. So you don't have to finish it with a band, but if you want to finish it with a band, this is how you do it. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. If you have questions, I'm going to go and see if I can see if there's questions. And unfortunately, I can't see. I really can't see viewer activity. I really can't see if anybody asked a question, so I apologize. Oh, I see questions now. Oh my goodness. Let me just see if I can review some questions here. I'm so sorry. Now I see where they are. All right, so Brenda said, thank you, this is awesome. Jessica said, thank you. Many questions answered. Brenda says, do you use the same binding for the neckline armholes? Also, how wide did you cut your binding? Connie says, hello. Hi, Connie. Regular thread and what stitch? All right, so let me just answer some questions here. This binding was a 2-inch wide binding because I knew I wanted it to be wide. And actually, when I did my neckline, I cut a 1.5 inch binding and then I trimmed it. So on my neckline, I sewed it on and flipped it under just like I showed you how to finish the pocket opening, and then I trimmed it close. So that's how I finished the neckline. That was narrower because this is a narrower finish. This was a 2-inch strip. Let me see. When I sew knits on the sewing machine, I use a short straight stitch, so like a 2.0, and then I stretch a little as I go. And you can see it's got enough give. This fabric doesn't have a ton of stretch going in this direction, but you can see that that's not going to pop. I can pull it with all my might and it's not going anywhere. And I used all-purpose thread. Kristen says it's raining in Portland, Oregon, so this is a good time. Oh, Kristen, I'm so sorry to hear it's raining there. We literally had 2 days of rain here. I did go for a hike this morning before I got on. Jessica asked if it was a stretch stitch. I don't like to use the stretch stitch or a small zigzag when I sew knits because you can actually see the ticks of the zigzag as you go along from the seam sometimes. So I just like to use a short straight stitch. It's hot already in Scottsdale. This is great. Oh, good. Ellen says, hi, Jen. Nice to catch up with you. Love your fabric. Thank you. I got this fabric at Fashion Fabric Club, but I believe it's sold out now. But they did have lots of nice knits. It's kind of a cool knit. Okay, and then Connie says, are you using a 4 thread and is your knife down? Well, it was up and then it was down at the end when I finished. So I'm glad I got to see the questions. All right, so I hope you guys will try this. It really is a lot of fun, and I really think it adds a lot of interest to the front of your top. Again, I'll show you the one I have on. You know, I just think it makes it, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's sporty. So if you're looking for a sporty look, I think it's really kind of cool. Um, but anyway, so I think that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Anybody who wants to get this pattern, go visit J Stern Designs Fitting and Pattern Perfection. And you can find the pattern for this kangaroo pocket. It's in the announcements. All right, so I am going to sign off. This was really fun. Please, stay tuned for more fun next week. And I do Fab Fit Friday every Friday at 1 o'clock in my Facebook group. So if you want to join me there, you can do that as well. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you again soon.